It's my aunt, Kim Beckham. Welcome, Aunt Kim.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Hi.
Awesome. Kim is our family member, and I know Kim because we went to high school together. Go Eagles, La Sierra High School. Woo woo. Um, um, she eventually, after high school, she met our cousin, Danny Beckham, and she married him. And today she's here to talk about her marriage with Danny, his drug addiction, some of the abuse that she suffered, and also to let us know how it is to be a single mom and how to overcome many things in life that she had to overcome. It's an honor to have Kim here today. She's one of my favorite people on the entire planet, and she's also one of the most wise people I know, and I love her dearly. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Now I'm crying.
Sorry, Kim.
Sorry. I love you too. You know that.
I know.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I want to start with how my life was growing up. My parents, my parents only hung out with church people or military people because my dad was in the Army, the Marines, and the National Guard Reserve. So I was in a very sheltered kind of bubble growing up. And when I was in high school, I was sitting in driver's ed, and we were waiting for the teacher because he was always late. This is back when they still had driver's ed, so this is like 1984, 85. And we were just all talking, and this girl said to me, she turned around and she said, "You're kind of cool. You should come to my house." And I was like, she thinks I'm cool? Okay, I'll go to her house. And so that ended up being Michelle's sister, Tammy Beckham. And I went to her house and hung out, and I basically never left. If I wasn't at home, I was at the Beckhams. And you have to understand, the Beckham's house was kind of like the Kool-Aid house. All the kids were there, and we were all hanging out, and it was just a safe environment. And I was thinking about it yesterday. I think because my dad had just left my mom for somebody else, but I saw Michelle's house as both parents were there all the time, and how lucky and how idealistic it was. And we always just felt safe and had a good time and did things together. And, you know, I wasn't until in my 20s and married to Danny that I found out that Michelle's dad did drugs, and the things that I look back now and I was like, I told Michelle, I missed that. I missed that. I was thinking today, too, we were always told if Dad was in Michelle, I called him Mom and Dad. I called Michelle's parents Mom and Dad. And if Dad was in the garage, you didn't bother him. And I remember Mom going, "Hey, I guess I was in the kitchen," and she said, "Take this burrito to Dad in the garage." And I was like, "What?" She goes, "You'll be fine." And I was like, okay. And I had to walk past Cujo, the dog, who terrified me.
Oh yeah, he was kind of scary.
He was a scary dog, and I took the burrito in, and I said, "Mom said to bring this to you," and he goes, "Okay." Put it on the counter, and he was just tinkering with stuff. Where I look back now, and I know, wiser, older, what was going on. You know, he was drilling holes in the garage door, and that paranoia. And when it happened with my husband at the end of his life, I remembered those things and caught on. But I was very, very naive to that whole world.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that hole in the garage door. But go on, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like when the narcs were looking for him.
It was the Friday before Labor Day, and my normal thing, Michelle's house was on a corner lot, and I parked on the side in my Camaro, and I walked up to the house, and Michelle's brother and a bunch of guys were sitting there on the front porch just hanging out, and I tripped over this guy's feet, and I said, "Oh, my God, I'm so sorry." And he goes, "No, my bad, my bad."
They were only like a size 14 or something, right?
Yeah, he's like a size 15, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was my first conversation with your cousin Danny. I'd always heard about him, but I'd never seen him. And so I went in the house and sat down with Tammy, and they had a huge picture window on their front. And so the guys were on the other side on the front porch hanging out, and Tammy and I were sitting there talking, and every time I spoke, this voice from outside like overshadowed me. And I finally said to her, "Who is that?" And she said, "That's my cousin Danny. Why, you like him?" And I said, "No, he is loud and obnoxious." Not realizing 2 days later I'd have my first date with him. So 2 days later, we're at Joe Jody and Danny's, so they lived in a duplex. On one side was Michelle's brother Jody and Danny sharing a place, and on the other side was Michelle's uncle and grandpa sharing a place. And it had one big yard. And we got in a boys against girls water fight. Danny's water gun ran out, so he picked up the hose and sprayed me. And I was angry, and I went and sat down next to Michelle's grandpa, Grandpa Beckham, and I said, that man infuriates me. And Grandpa said to me, you need to get over that. You're going to marry my grandson one day. And I said, no, Grandpa, that's not happening.
Grandpa was wise.
He was very
He might have
smart
been
and wise.
80-something at the time, but he was wise.
And so, of course, we started dating, and it was a horrible dating experience. He was dating 2 other girls, and
Oh, no.
it was just awful. And I didn't know then that he was doing drugs. I had no idea.
Can you tell me the joke that you told? I love the joke. I think you left it out. There's a joke you used to say. Do you remember? About, like, Tammy said, meet my...
Oh, yeah, Tammy. We used to have that joke that Tammy said, meet my cousin, and I thought she said, marry my cousin.
Yeah, I love that. Sorry, I had to.
No, yeah, I totally forgot about that. So we started dating, and he was dating other girls, and it was just awful. Well, he said to me, let's get out of here. And I was like, what? And he goes, let's take a trip. And I said, where do you want to go? And he said, let's take a road trip up to Hearst Castle. So we took the weekend and drove up to Hearst Castle, and when we came back, Danny told me that's when he knew I was the one.
Awesome.
And so I had no intention of ever getting married. I told my mom at 16, I'm having children, but I'm never getting married. And she said, that's not how I raised you. And I said, well, I'm telling you now. And the reason why I said that is because my father left my mom when I was 5 months old because he couldn't handle her cancer. My mom had a rare form of cancer. And then my stepdad married my mom when I was 1 and left my mom when I was 14 because he said he couldn't handle the cancer anymore.
Yeah.
So in my eyes at 16, men don't stick around. The going gets tough, they jam.
Yeah.
Right.
So Danny and I, so that's when we became exclusive. So we met the Labor Day weekend. We became exclusive November 2nd or 3rd. We moved into our first apartment December 22nd. On Christmas Eve, he asked me to marry him, and I said, oh, no, thank you. We're good. And it was probably the only time he literally looked like I slapped him in the face.
Aww.
And I was like, no, we're good, because I honestly had in my head he's going to leave me in 6 months, because that's what I thought men did.
Right, yeah.
So then a week later, Danny was partying with his cousin Shelly and her boyfriend David and different people still doing the meth. And my life was waking up every day and the house was spotless and furniture rearranged, cabinets. That was just the norm when I was realizing how the drugs affected our lives.
Mm-hmm.
When did you realize that he was using? Did you realize at that point, or did you just think like he was very clean freak or something?
Yeah, I think it was when we moved in with each other that I really realized it, because that's when I was with him constantly. Because at his house with Jody, I didn't see it or notice it. It wasn't until we got into our house, our first apartment, and I'm like, why is he so obsessed with where everything is? And, don't close the cabinets because they make a loud sound. And I just thought he was quirky.
Right.
And so, but then I started going, why are you cleaning things with a toothbrush? And why are you up all night? And he's like, well, I do meth. And I was like, oh.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
That's how it was in our family. It wasn't
no
like,
idea.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Alyssa was just like, wow. And I was saying, well, in our family, you
She's
have to
upfront about
understand it was very like, it was kind of commonplace. But go on, Kim. Sorry.
Yeah. And so I just, my thing was, the funny story is I came out of the bedroom one day and fell over a chair, like a recliner chair. It was a low chair that we had. And I fell over it because it wasn't there the night before when I went to bed.
No,
and I was like, dude. And he was like, oh, sorry.
Oh, no.
So it just blew my mind. And so then like I said, he was always partying. Shelly and David were always over. Brothers were always over. And everybody was always partying. And I have always had drugs free to me in my life, even before I met Danny and my other friends and stuff. I was just always kind of like the designated driver because I can't stand not being in control and what might happen to me if I'm not lucid, and so I was always just terrified of it.
I can relate.
And so I just figured, here comes. So Danny asked me to marry him, like I said, on Christmas Eve, and I said no, thank you. And then here comes New Year's Eve, and I said, so is everybody coming over? Do I need to go by? What do I need to do? I was all of 19 years old here. And he goes, no, let's just you and me stay home and be together. And I was like, what? Because that wasn't our norm. And he goes, yeah, I'm going to go get a couple steaks and we'll just stay home. And I was like, okay. And so we did, and we were sitting there, and I just remember I think it was a documentary or something about the Rose Parade, because here we are at New Year's Eve, and the next Rose Parade was about to happen the next day. And he had a calendar in his hand, and he said, hey, do you want to marry me on February 25th? And I said, shh, because I was trying to watch whatever I was watching.
So you shushed him. And
then, when you hear something, but you don't hear it till like a minute later.
Yes.
I realized what he said, and I turned around and looked at him, and again, he looked at me like I slapped him in the face. And I said, oh, you're serious?
Oh, no.
And he said, yes, I'm serious. And I said, sure, whatever, sure. He goes, well, wait, before you answer me, he goes, let me tell you something. And I said, what's that? He said, I promise to never leave you. And I go, what? He goes, you think men don't stick around. And I go, well, they don't. And he goes, I promise to never leave you. And I was like, okay, this guy did this research. And I found out later he went to my mom and asked and told my mom. She told me, no, what's going on?
Right. I wondered. Okay.
So I was like, okay, this guy did his research. He's being serious with me. And I said, well, I have something to say. And he said, what's that? And I said, this is a marriage of two. You either be married to me or you be married to your drugs. But I can't live this way anymore, and you can't have it both ways, and I will not bring children into it. And he goes, okay. He goes, it's going to be 10 days of hell and withdrawals. And I said, I've been through hell. My mom has seen so much medical stuff. I've watched her almost die a million times. I can handle it. And it was about 2.5 weeks of withdrawals, and he did it, though. He did it for me, and I was so proud and adored, and you know what I mean? I was just so happy. And we had a great, great life for quite a while. Now, looking back, I can see where, he might have slipped there or he might have slipped there. But I was totally naive to it, and he kept it out of he was really trying. He really, really tried. And I was really, really proud of him. So fast forward, so we got married on Friday the 13th. I know people are freaking out, but it was on purpose. It was meant to be. If I told you how many 13s are in my life, you would be amazed. And we got married on Friday the 13th. He wanted to get married in Circus Chapel, so that's where we went. It was a 3-day weekend because it was the first year that the United States celebrated Martin Luther King Day on Monday. So my whole wedding trip cost $500. And when we came back, he said, and it was funny because he was high the whole time. He was high the entire weekend. And I said, my mom finds out that you do drugs, you're going to get hell for this. Because my mom was a very strong, faithful Christian woman and would not put up with that. And she had a childhood that was horrific, so with men. And so I said, you better keep yourself in line. And he did. I could tell he was high, but I don't think maybe my mom could, but she didn't say anything.
Yeah, right.
There was at one point he went to go get us drinks. We were in the hotel waiting to go get married, and he went to get us drinks, and he was gone for 2 hours. And I said, Mom, he left me. See? He left me.
Oh, that sucks.
He left me. Well, he finally showed up, and he goes, okay, I got lost. I went to the wrong room. You know,
all the excuses.
Nervous. He was so nervous that he got lost. I was like, I thought you left. He said, I told you I'm not going to leave you.
Oh.
So I was just always waiting for that other shoe to fall. So we got married, like I said, in January of 89. We had Ryan in January of 91. We had Deanna in February of 93. And then in September of 94, my mom passed away. She battled cancer for 23 years, and she passed away at the age of 44. And she was my best friend. I was devastated.
I loved your mom. I just want to say she's a great lady.
She loved
wonderful.
everybody. She was
wonderful
so sweet
person.
and so kind to everybody, and such a great role model for me of hanging in there and pulling up your bootstraps and keep going. And
Yeah, she never gave up, and she had so many surgeries. It was unreal. Do you know how many surgeries she actually had, Kim?
21 tumors removed in 23 years.
Yeah, and
Her,
go ahead.
her,
Sorry.
her first one was when I was 5 months old, and her last one was when I was 23, because the one they were supposed to take when I was 25, they said, if we pull this, we'll make you a vegetable, and we're not doing that to you. So this one's going to be terminal. And they told her she had 2 years, and it killed her in 5 months. So,
Wow.
But didn't they at one point tell her that she wouldn't live to see Jamie grow up, right?
yeah, my sister was 2 days old, 1971, and they said, your cancer is so bad, you need to get your affairs in order. You will never see Jamie walk, and you'll never see Kim start school. And my mom just said, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Yeah, and it was.
So at the end of her life, I remember cleaning her room. It was about a week before she died, and she told me and my sister, I better not die in a hospital. If I am dying, you better drag me out on the front lawn. I don't want to die in that building.
Yep.
And we were like, okay, Mom, we got it.
That's
so
awesome.
She was insistent that she would die at home and stuff.
Yeah.
But a week before she died, I was cleaning her room, and I remember I was cleaning the windows, and I had my back to her, and she said, I'm tired. And I said, I know, Mom, just get some rest. And she said, no, I'm a different tired. And I was like, oh, here it comes.
Yeah.
And it was about a week later, and we were both by her side when she died and did it the way she wanted, and I followed every wish to the last minute, and that's something I told Michelle last year when her mom was passing. I said, stay true to your mom's wishes, because you have to live with yourself and you have to sleep at night. And, I had my aunts coming in trying to change things and calling us, and my sister and I were constantly in tears because they wanted all these things done at my mom's funeral and with her stuff. And my husband, Danny, got on the phone and said, keep harassing Kim and Jamie, and you won't be allowed at the funeral.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, he was. Danny was a rock as far as that's concerned, and he would protect anyone. He was a big, huge guy, and he would like really protect his family and protect people. I loved him to death. He did have the other side, the same other side that my dad had. They could flip the switch on you and go from a teddy bear to a grizzly bear, and they could be very scary as well. But go on.
But Danny had told me he was on his own at 13, and when his parents said, well, we're getting a divorce, and you guys, good luck to you, and Danny didn't know where to go, so he went to one of his uncle's houses, and they said, yeah, you can rent the trailer out back. And I can't imagine telling a 13-year-old, yeah, you can rent the trailer out back. Yeah. But that's when Danny, he was a salesman. He was very smart and very, I don't know what the word, intuitive about things. And like he said, he started noticing that these houses were for sale, but the lawns were dying because the houses were empty. So he would go call up the realtors and say, hey, pay me to keep the lawns nice until you sell it. And that's how he started his business. And his rent at 13 was $125 a month to his uncle in the trailer out back. And he said, I was making $600-700 a month mowing these lawns.
It's amazing.
So, he made it work.
Yeah, he just was smart about that. And that was the one thing that I appreciated, because I could say to him, hey, this month we're going to be $500 short. And he would, $500 short on the bills. And he would say, give me a minute. Give me a couple days. And I'm like, okay. And then he'd show up with it. Now, the one day he showed up and he handed me like $850 in front of my mom. And my mom said, you don't ask him where it comes from? And I said, if I ever have to take a lie detector, I'm on it.
That's great.
Nope, I have no idea. And Danny didn't want me to know, and I didn't want to know. And
so don't
he
ask.
He knew how to hustle.
Oh, Danny was a hustler.
He
for
did.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah.
So I have to tell you this one time he towed a car into my mom's backyard, because my mom lived on a busy street. And I said, oh, my God, what are we doing? And he said, have faith in me. And I said, okay. He said, I got it for free. I traded it for this TV. I was like, oh, and it was an ugly, faded peach Ford Fairmount car.
I don't even know what that is.
I do.
Huh?
I said, I don't even know what that is. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. My parents had a green one. That's the only reason why. This one was peach. Anyway, so I go out back the next day. He's cleaning it up. He's got has for sale sign on it. I'm like, oh, we're going to be stuck with this junk forever. And the very next day, I remember standing at the back of the car, and he's in the passenger seat, and there's this little Mexican man in the driver's seat. And my husband's turning the radio to a Spanish station, and my husband's just talking and talking and talking. The next thing I know, my husband's helping him push it out of the driveway, and he pops it and helps it run off down, and it's like barely, it's like down the street. And my husband turned around and handed me $800, and I said,
He sold it?
I said, I will never doubt you again, ever.
Yeah.
That's
You
awesome.
could sell ice to an Eskimo.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Danny.
Yeah.
He learned that from his dad. Well, I think Uncle Bob was very much a salesperson. Very much.
Yeah, and he was just very smart about that, and could take something and make it bigger, and I appreciated that. And like I said, he didn't. Not that I can know that he did drugs. There was a couple times I went looking for him because he was out all night, and I was mad because I had 2 babies at home, and he was irritated with me. And so when I look back at that, I'm like, oh, okay, he probably slipped there. I get it.
Yeah.
But pretty much never. And then, so after my mom died, he said, we got to get out of here. And his 2 brothers lived up in Oregon, up in Astoria and Seaside. And he goes, let's just go visit and see if we like it. So we went up there for a week and visited, and we liked it. And so a year later, when my mom's house sold, we packed up 2 dogs, a car, and 2 kids, and jumped in the U-Haul and moved to Oregon. And we lived in Astoria at first, but then there wasn't a lot of work there, so we decided to go to Portland, which was more inland. And my husband got a job right away, and so did I. But I didn't like Portland because it reminded me of L.A. So a friend of ours said, why don't you go over the river, because Portland's right on the Columbia River, into Vancouver, Washington. And I just fell in love. Vancouver reminded me of Mariloma, where there were still fields and houses were far apart, and there was farms. And when we lived there about 2 years. They were excited because they were getting their first Carl's Jr. And I was like, okay. That's how behind times they were. They didn't have any Mexican food places. It was really weird for us.
That's the worst when you don't have Mexican food or good Mexican food.
Well, we knew we were not in our normal element. We were used to Southern California and being 2 hours from
That's
Mexico.
back then. That's where Carl's Jr. is still called Hardee's.
Yes. So we got up there, and we were doing well. And, his brothers, 2 of his brothers are up there, and my husband started working for the shipping company where the trucks would pull up with their big trailers, and my husband would load them onto ships, and they would go out to port. And I got a job at the Home Depot down the road, and I was a front-end manager, and we were doing good. And December of '96, Danny came home, and so at that time Ryan was 96, so Ryan was about 4, and Deanna was about 2, our son and daughter. And he came home, and I said, I think I'm pregnant. And he said, what? I said, I think I'm pregnant. And so it was funny because he went upstairs. I said, I just took a test upstairs, and he went upstairs, and I went upstairs following him, and I picked up our daughter, and Deanna said, what's wrong with Daddy? And I said, he's in denial, and he was just standing there staring at the stick.
Oh, no.
And he said, it says wait 5 minutes. You didn't even wait 5 minutes. And I said, I didn't need to wait 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it became, it was pregnant instantly. And he was like, okay. And so that was around December of '96. So fast forward to February 20. Our daughter turned 4 on February 19th. On February 20th, he came home and was agitated and upset and said he got in a fight with a coworker, and he knows it's not over. And he was worried. He was on the phone with his brothers about it. He was on the phone with his dad about it that night. And the next morning, it's funny the things you remember. I didn't get up. He got up and went to work, but I heard a cabinet slam, and I knew it was the cabinet above the refrigerator, and I was like, uh-oh, because that's where he kept some of his knives and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like, he left work like 5 a.m. About 7 a.m. I got a call from him saying, something bad has happened. And him and the coworker confronted each other, and the coworker put a staple gun to his chest and said, "You will apologize for yesterday for disrespecting me." And Danny was like, "I didn't disrespect you. You weren't doing your job, so I did it for you." And an altercation happened, and my husband, so later we were told that Danny has explosive disorder. And if you know what that is, it's where you get so angry that your memory shuts off. Right. So Danny told me, "Kim, we were standing there face to face arguing, and the next thing I know, he's laying in a pool of blood, and I'm standing there with a packing knife." He goes, "I don't remember stabbing him." And I said, "Okay." So then that went on to a trial, and in the state of Oregon, and he got an assault one, and assault one is 5 years, 10 months minimum. So now my husband's going to prison. I'm pregnant 5 months with our daughter.
I'm sorry, 1 second. What ended up happening with the guy that he stabbed?
He survived.
Okay, yeah.
He did survive.
Okay.
He did survive, and I didn't mention that the night before, the last thing he did is he spit in my husband's face.
Right.
And I just thought, he's never going to do that to anybody again.
Right.
Because, and see, what happened was a trucker was waiting to be unloaded, and he waited 2 hours, and it was this other coworker's, I don't want to say his name, job to do it, and he wasn't doing it. So the trucker knew Danny, and he said, "Hey, Danny, can you just unload me so I can get out of here? Time is money."
Yeah.
So Danny started unloading the truck, and then the coworker walked up and said, "Hey, that's my job." And he said, "Well, you're not doing it. It's cool. I'm doing it for you." Then after work, as my husband was driving out of work, he stopped my husband and said, "You were disrespectful to me, and you need to apologize." And my husband said no, and he spit in my husband's face.
Right.
And even even his father, my father-in-law
I'm
said,
surprised.
"Why did you just punch him?"
Well, I'm surprised. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember hearing that before and just being like, okay, that doesn't. The guy's lucky he didn't kill him right then. Well, I mean, not lucky. It's not ever lucky. I shouldn't say it like that.
Because you know how Danny was.
But I know my family. I know Beckham's. I know Danny especially, and my dad. Both of them are. Yeah, that's
right. Danny and his brother got in a fight. I was pregnant with Deanna. We were living at my mom's house in Riverside, and Danny and his brother got in a fight, and his best friend, the next thing I know, Danny's punching his brother, and his brother's knocked out unconscious in the driveway. And I'm like, my mom's like, "Just get in the house, honey," because they were all drinking, all day, and started yelling at each other. And Danny hated that his older brothers were always like, "You need to respect me because I'm your older brother." And Danny's like, "That's not happening."
Well, yeah, that and that might have triggered him too. The guy said basically the same thing that he's been hearing from his brothers.
Yeah.
It probably triggered him a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So we went through all of that, and the police. So when Danny called me and told me what happened, "Hey, Kim, it just happened. I don't know what I'm doing. Head to my brother's house." So I was like, "Okay." So I picked up the kids at 7:00 in the morning and headed to his brother's house. Well, when I get back to my house is ransacked. My house, the broken window, the police came in, dumped out everything. I had to go through an interrogation. Danny had taken off, and so me and his brother are sitting there, and they're like, "We're taking you both to jail. Your husband's a Neanderthal." So my husband already had a record of a bank robbery, and I said, they said, "If you're afraid of your husband, we have a safe." I said, "I'm more afraid of you than I am of my husband."
Right.
"Why is my house ransacked?" And they said, "Well, we didn't know if he killed you guys first and then went to work and attacked his coworker." And I said, "What?" So I have to tell you guys, all my food was dumped out. And I said, "So you thought I was in the cereal?" I'm looking at him like I don't understand.
What was
And
the
they had my brother-in-law handcuffed in the car. And so my husband calls, and I said, "They're here. They're looking for you. They got your brother in handcuffs. What do you want to do?" And he's like, "Put him on the phone. I'll tell him where I am." So he told them where he was. Do you guys know it took 6 hours for them to go get him?
Wow.
It's unreal. That is unreal.
He called back 3 more times and said, "Okay, I'm at the bar drinking now." And they're like, "Sir, don't drink." And he's like, "Come get me. Come get me."
That's so bizarre. Like he could have taken off. What were they doing? Were they still at your house at that point?
They were still at my house interrogating me. he went to a local casino, Danny did, and said, "Here I am, come get me." And he got tired of waiting. It took almost 6 hours for them to get him.
That's bizarre.
And so, of course, he was found guilty and 5 years, 10 months. And I tried very, very hard to sustain ourselves and make it there to stay close to him for the kids, for him, for us. Mm-hmm. And, I have to tell you, so they finally went down to the casino and picked him up. So my brother-in-law and I said, we're going to go down to the casino and pick up my van, because that was my vehicle, and Danny was in it. And so it was interesting. We stopped at a McDonald's, and we looked over, and there was a van that said City of Portland Police Department. And the van door opened up, and there's my husband sitting there at this random McDonald's. And I thought, okay, universe, here we go. And the police officer that had been at my house all morning got out, and he goes, I'm going to let you talk to him for a minute. And I was like, okay. And the first thing Danny said to me is, "I'm so, so sorry." And I said, "It's okay. We're going to get through this." Now, I'm telling you, this is 8 years into our marriage. And he said, "No." He goes, "When I proposed, I promised to never leave you, and look what I did."
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I said, that's what you're worried about? No, no, we're good. But it just broke my heart that that's the first thing he wanted to say to me, and I was like, we're going to get through this. It's cool. No problem. And like I said, that happened February 21st. So by March 17th, I'm like, I can't sustain us. I can't keep us here. I'm going to have to go home to all of his family, all of my family that I know will love and support me.
How far along were you with your pregnancy? How far along were you in your pregnancy at this point?
I think 5 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
If I was due at the end of August, so maybe 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
So I called my dad, of course, and I said, I need to come home. And he said, I'm going to be there in 24 hours, and he was. And I was just a mess, and, my nephew Jason was there, and my brother-in-laws were there, and my dad and my sister, and everybody loaded my stuff because I was a mess. I couldn't find my way out of a bag, and my dad got everything in my U-Haul, put me in my car, and said, follow me. And he got me home, and obviously I look back now and see, because what happened with my daughter a couple months later is I would have died in Oregon, and my children would have been alone. So I had to come home. It was important I came home.
Yeah.
And you sound like, when you talk about the arrest, you sound so calm. At the time, how were you feeling? Were you feeling this sense of calm, like it's going to be okay, or were you freaking out? I think I'd be freaking out. That's why I asked.
I was calm because it was like I said, we didn't have good experiences with police officers. I'm being honest. I don't like them. I don't feel good experiences. I was always guilty by association, and I didn't appreciate that because you don't even know me.
Right.
So when this police officer is sitting here going, your husband's a Neanderthal, and I was like, what? And I go, I sleep with him every night. And he goes, well, I know him better than you because I've been reading about him all day. And I said, I sleep with him. I know him better than you.
Right.
And he's like, well, if you're not safe. And I said, I'm more afraid of you.
Yep.
Right.
You guys are all over the place. So no, you broke a window. Now I got to explain that to my landlord. And they said to me, it was a weird statement. They said, well, we spoke to your neighbors and you didn't see any of them this morning. I said, do you talk to your neighbors every day? Because that doesn't make sense to me.
Right. So they
It's
thought that you were
7:00
dead
in the
because
morning.
you didn't talk to your neighbors. They thought you were dead or something.
Yeah. So we thought he killed you. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
It just did. Like I said, I just felt like you guys are making up lies
Yep.
to justify the things you've done.
Yep.
Right.
And I was very lucky. My landlord was like, no, Kim, we get it. We understand. Don't worry about the window. I said, no, they said they'd pay for it.
Yeah, they better. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't even think back till years later when I was like, they didn't even have a warrant. You just busted into my house because you thought I was dead.
Right.
Well, they were using
how
that
did that work out?
That was using they were probably going to say that was probable cause, That's why
And
they
looking for me in my cereal, I'm like, seriously, I think you were looking for the weapon.
Right.
Right.
Because they were looking for the packing knife that Danny used. And Danny told them, I threw it in a river. Good luck to you. I
Right.
threw it out the window at
But
a
he
river.
wasn't
The
denying
prosecutor.
it either. He wasn't ever denying
No,
it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
because even when the pictures came out, when the prosecutors presented the pictures, it looked like the gentleman was gutted from hip to hip, and his attorney said, "You did this? You did this?" And my husband said, "No, I did not do that." And then they pulled the doctor up, and the doctor said, "Oh no, I had to open him up like that to save him."
Right.
But they were presenting it like my husband had gutted him.
Yeah.
Right.
Without even telling them. Yep.
Right.
That's crazy.
Right. And my husband's like, "I didn't do." And so I was like, "Gosh, it's such to me it was such a corrupt incident
Mm-hmm.
that I
Yeah.
was like, okay." But Danny never denied it.
Right. And you were kind
But
of
and they
just living from moment to moment almost. It's like get over this, the police being in your house and doing this to you. You just get over that, and then deal with the landlord. Then get over that. Then trying to work, trying to deal with the kids, and trying to. I mean, you really didn't have a moment to take it in.
no.
To take
Right.
it in. Really, you had to be calm.
I did, and my mom just, I sat many a times in the hospital. Like I said, it's funny because you can look at your life experiences and see how they jump to, you learn something here because something's coming in the future. And so for me, it was interesting because my mom, when my dad left at 14, my mom taught me and my sister to be very, very independent and not depend on men. And she even said to me near the end of her life, "I may have taught you to be too independent."
Right.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I got this, and to pull up your bootstraps. And my mom went to work every day, loved her job at the school district, and fought cancer every day, and the pain and the surgeries and
And
the
you didn't.
downtime and the things she went through. And so she taught me and my sister to be incredibly independent and handle stuff. So when Danny went to prison, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I lost his income. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I thought, no, I went to my instincts that my mom taught me: pull up your bootstraps, handle it, and get through it.
Yeah.
And your mom, we didn't really mention that the surgeries she had were all on her face. So
All in her face.
yeah, so
21 tumors, all on the right side of her face. She lost her brain lining. She lost her right ear. It was on the pituitary gland. They kept saying, we don't know why it keeps coming back. The same cancer killed her father in 9 months. My mom had it for 23 years. They said, we don't know. We don't even know why it keeps coming back.
But
And
she
it
every
doesn't
day
spread.
she got up and she, and you even told me I think people would look at her and point at her and things because she had the deformity. And every day to get up with that and live with that. I mean, that has to be an awesome example for you and Jamie. For everyone who knew her.
Right.
It was an awesome example for me as a teenager.
Because she was disfigured, and people would run into like displays in the store.
Oh my gosh.
People are so
People would
dumb.
just
Embarrassing.
stare and
People are
point,
so
and
dumb.
my mom was just like, "Oh my God!" And my mom had a very good sense of humor because she's like, "If they don't stop staring, I'm going to pick my nose." And I'm like, "Oh my God, Mom, please don't do that. Please don't do
That's
that,
great.
Mom." But even like a little kid came up to her one time. I was just standing there looking up at her in the grocery store, and I said, "Mom, it's a little kid." She goes, "Do you do that?" I said,
Right.
"No." She goes, "Because I taught you right."
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Right.
So
Somebody's
I
parents
was
should have
grateful for the example that she set for me because it did help me get through the next tragedies of my life.
Right. Yeah.
So here I am, pregnant, back in Riverside, in my sister's one-bedroom apartment. We got to figure that part out. I don't have a job. It was April, the end of April. I walked into the welfare office and I told my worker, I will be here 1 year. And she goes, okay, honey, I said, no, that's my goal, 1 year. I'm out of here. And I said, I'm not going to be that person. And she goes, she's just processing my, and I got on assistance and went back to church and got my church family around me and got my Beckham family back around me and my own family. And fast forward, that was April of 97, and Michelle and I were both pregnant.
Yes.
And Michelle was pregnant with her middle child, and I was pregnant with my third. And it was July. My daughter was due August 29th, and the doctor said to me, I'm taking her August 14th because my last two babies were 11 pounds, 5 ounces, 2 feet long.
Yeah.
Were they both 5 ounces too?
what Ryan was 5 ounces, Deanna was 4 ounces.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I remember they were 11 pounds. I remember that. But go on.
11.5, 11.4, and they were both 23.5 inches long.
Yeah.
And the doctor said, I'm not letting you have another big baby. I was like,
Right.
okay. I'm used to having toddlers, but okay.
That's taller than my 15-month-old is now.
Right?
So,
And you got to understand, like Michelle said, my husband was a big guy, 6'1".
Yeah.
He looked like a linebacker, football player. He was a big guy, and he was 10.5 pounds when he was born.
Right.
I'm a big girl, 5'9", and I was 11 pounds when I was born.
Yeah.
So we were prepared. We knew what we were getting into. And so, like I said, she was due August 29th. He said, I'm taking her the 14th. July 29th, we went to bed. It was super hot. Riverside, if you know Riverside, it's super hot.
yep.
And I got a pain in my stomach just after midnight, and I stood up, and I told my sister, and I called Parkview Hospital because that was my hospital at the time. They said, get here. I stood up and immediately fell to the floor. Then I stood up again, and I guess it was adrenaline, and I told my sister, I'm just getting to the car. That's my job. And she was like, okay, and I fell again on my side in the living room. At that point, I couldn't get up. And my sister was on the phone, and she was calling 911. The next thing I know, the paramedics are there, and I am 28 years old at this point, and the paramedics come in, and I felt like my eyes were glued shut, and I could not speak. And he was saying, what's your name? What's your name? And I was screaming in my head, Kim, my name is Kim. And he was like, how old are you? And I was screaming in my head, 28, I'm 28. And then he said, are you using any street drugs? And apparently I was so offended by that question, I blurted out, no.
That's the one
And
that got
he goes, and he goes, okay, she's still with us. And so the next thing I know is I hear a firefighter standing over me, and he's like, what do we got? And the paramedics, this is when I knew I was in trouble, the paramedics said, we have to go, her blood pressure is 50 over 0.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, oh no. And so they got me to Parkview, and that all ensued. So to backtrack a little bit, when my mom wanted to die at home in 94, they put Danny, my sister, and I through hospice training. This is what's going to happen. We don't want you to be alarmed by this, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things they said was, you're going to know it's the end because your mom's going to become cold and clammy. Those were the words they used. And then she's going to fall into a coma, and then she'll probably pass away. And that's kind of what happened. So now I'm in the emergency room, and I'm laying there, and I can't speak, and I can't open my eyes, and I'm just hearing all the commotion around me. And the nurse says, the doctor comes in, and he goes, what do we got? And it was my doctor. They called him in the middle of the night to come. And he said, what do we got? And the nurse said, we need to hurry because she's cold and clammy.
Oh, God.
And my sister was sitting about 6 feet away from me, and she said, I immediately looked up and went, oh no, because we both knew what those words meant.
Right.
And they rushed me into surgery. So what happened is the doctor came in. I was in ICU after the surgery, and the doctor came in and said, it's a rare phenomenon, Kim, but she did a somersault, and she turned so hard and so fast she pulled the placenta off the wall, and she died as if turning off a light switch. And I said, well, I had orange juice before I went to bed last night. He goes, no. I said, I did this. And he's like, no. I said, I did this. He said, Kim, stop. He said, you could have been in a hospital bed with your legs up in stirrups, and this still could have happened. He said, this is the second time it's happened in my 20-year career, and the other lady I had to give a full hysterectomy to. He said, I didn't have to do that for you, but I'm telling you, you lost 3/4 of your blood. When I opened you up, you were internally bleeding.
Yeah.
And he said, if your sister would have waited 10 more minutes to call 911, you would have died on the living room floor. He goes, that's how close you were. And I told him about the 50 over 0 blood pressure. He goes, yeah, you barely had a pulse when you came in.
Wow.
And what was interesting is I was so aware of everything going on, being so close to death. And it was also interesting when, right before I went into surgery, this song lyric came to me. This Van Halen song lyric came to me. And it said, it says, where I've been to the edge and I stood and looked down. I've lost a lot of friends there. I've got no time to mess around. And I remember that song lyric coming to me, and I thought, okay. And I started praying, okay, God, if this is the end for me, cool. If you took my daughter, cool. I said, but my 2 babies are now alone because their father's 1,000 miles away in prison. So please, please protect them and keep them safe. And then I went into surgery, and when I woke up, the nurse was talking to me, and I said, was it a girl? And she said, what? And I said, was it a girl? And she goes, just rest. I said, was it a girl? And she goes, let me check. And she came back and she goes, yes. And I said, thank you. And I remember nodding off. And I woke up and I see you. And this poor little nurse, Alice, I'm telling you, she was all of maybe 22. And I think it was like her first week. And I said, when will I see my baby? And she said, you know your baby passed. I said, when will I see her? And she just ran out of the room. And I was like, okay. Then a head nurse came in and she said, what do you need? And I said, I need to see her. I can't be pregnant and then not be pregnant. I need to see her. And you guys, you need to understand, I was 8 months pregnant. She was coming in 2 weeks. We already had baby showers and nurseries set up, and I had the whole shebang. So she said, let me go prepare her. And she came back and she said, we're preparing her. She goes, but you got a lot of family out there. She goes, we're going to do something we've never done before. And there was almost 20 people, 20 of my family members, and they let them all in my ICU. They brought her to me. We spent about an hour and a half with her. And I started unwrapping her, and the nurse goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm counting fingers and toes. I need to see her. And she was a spitting image of my other daughter, and everybody got to hold her and say goodbye to her. And, you know, my dad was so sweet. He came over and he whispered in my ear, he said, let's get something straight. You bury me, I don't bury you. And I said, okay, Dad, I got it.
Right.
I got it. And so when we went to bury her, they had to, in the state of California, you have to have the permission of both parents to cremate. And Danny and I had already decided, we'd already talked about it on the phone, because, again, he's in an Oregon prison when all this is going down. And he had to sign the paper, we had to fax it back, and we had to have the whole funeral and all of that. Well, Danny kept apologizing to me constantly, and I was like, why do you keep apologizing? He goes, well, I caused you all this stress, and that's why you lost her. And I said, that's not why I lost her. It's a rare phenomenon. Just things happen. And to the day he died, he was convinced that it was his fault that she died. And one of the first things he said to me was, we're going to have another one. And I said, okay, but I need you to understand, we're not replacing her. That will be our 4th child. But he would get upset when Ryan would say, I have 2 sisters. Or Deanna would say, yeah, I have a brother and sister. And he said to me, well, why do you keep talking about that dead baby? And I said, it's not a dead baby, it's our daughter.
Yeah.
But I think he just struggled with the guilt or whatever he was feeling about it that he couldn't understand. And, you know, men, especially Danny, like to fix things. How do I fix it? You know, and sometimes like when you vent to your spouse, he was always trying, well, I don't know what you want me to say. And I'm like, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. And he was like, oh, okay. I thought you wanted me to have a solution. I'm like, no.
Right.
You can't fix my coworker, or you can't fix why this is happening, or
Right, exactly.
you know. So I understood. I could see him struggle with, I can't fix this for her.
Right.
Yeah. I
So-
remember that I was very pregnant with Danae, and I was so upset, and I wasn't able to even really go to the funeral. I always felt bad about that, but I just didn't feel like I had it in me. And then I also worried that, like, you seeing me, it would upset you, but you were so good. And I came to the reception, and you were just so sweet and understanding. You've always had that in you, to where you didn't have like a jealous bone in your body, and you understood those kind of things, and I really appreciated that. We only have about 3 minutes, I think, 3 or 4 minutes maybe, 4 minutes left. But I want to ask you if you will come back to the show in 2 weeks. But go ahead and awesome. Go ahead and finish your final thoughts.
Well, I wanted to say, too, that I knew you were avoiding me, and I understood, because I remember I was walking back to work or something, and I remember you were driving down the street, and you pulled over, and I said, can I see the baby? And you were like, Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just so excited for you and stuff, and I wanted our girls to grow up together and stuff, but I understood why you were avoiding me, and that's a hard thing to do. My baby's here and your baby's not. I get that part.
Right. Yeah, I always felt that way. I always felt bad. But it was always really sweet how Ryan and Deanna, when Danae, my middle child, came, when Ryan and Deanna were around her, they always treated her extra special. And they always remembered that their little sister, Katie, was the same age as my Danae. I always,
Right, and Danae was always important to me because I was like, she's the age my daughter would be right now. She's the age, every year I was like, okay, that's what my daughter would be doing right now, and that's where my daughter would be at. So yeah, it's kind of like watching thinking about your own child, because here's a child so close to you, and Danae's always been special to me, and
yeah.
I just had hoped they'd be cousins and grow up together and stuff, and
Yeah, exactly.
so that I think also is part of why Danny spiraled out of control at the end, and things just got too much for him, and that's what I can tell you in 2 weeks, the end of his life, and
Right.
the struggle and everything we went through, and Michelle, you were an instrumental part of that, because I was practically calling you every day,
2 minutes.
crying and just feeling hopeless, and
Yeah.
you would just stay on the phone with me.
Yeah, I love you, and yeah, and we just all have been through so much, and especially with the addiction aspect of it, and I think it was a lot for Danny to take in. Um, we're gonna have to wrap up now. We're gonna have you back in 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to have Linda Clark on the show. She's going to be telling us about her recovery and addiction, her story of recovery and addiction. Thank you so much for being with us today, Kim.
Thanks, Aunt Kim.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Love you so much.
Love you.
Love you. Thank you for listening to KCAA 102.3 FM, 1050 AM, and 106.5 FM, the station that leaves no listener behind. Have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine.
KCAA, your good neighbor along the way.
Absolute Contractors Inc. is taking time to remind listeners that blood supply levels are critically low. Donate blood generously. You may